Last time on Sailing Zingaro, we suffered a horrible accident where we lost our forestay and had to figure out how to deal with a 200-pound furler flying through the air.
Yeah. Hurry.
This week we're going to cover some of the questions I received on that video and talk about the lessons we can all learn from this event.
As most of you guys know, we had a catastrophic failure of our forestay. I want to show you some of the footage from that and explain to you guys what happened. We were sailing from Panama to Saint Maarten to pick up my new dinghy, and we made it to Aruba, like about 20 miles off the coast of Aruba. We were going to stop in Bonaire, let Joe off so he could fly home for the holidays, and then we were going to keep going. We had a beautiful weather window. Right then, the weather right now in this video is about 20, gusting to 25. Not horrible, maybe a little higher than that. I had another buddy that left at about the same time as us, and he went up to DR and he said it was the worst passage he's ever taken. He ripped 3 sails and broke his motor mounts. So I know that this was really poor conditions. In the wintertime in this area of the world, it's some of the worst conditions in the world just because there's so much current in your face. So we were double reefed on the jib, single reefed on the main. We were doing about 4.5 knots. Pretty crazy. So the waves aren't huge, but we're going against them fast. So every time we take one, it's slowing us down. And we're only averaging about 4.5 knots, unfortunately. I can put a little more sail out, maybe a little bit later, but right now I'm afraid to break things. I'm afraid it's gonna rip things off the boat. Literally 10 minutes later, this happened. See, there's about 200 pounds of furler with the big drum at the end just swinging around. I mean, if that were to hit somebody, it would kill them for sure. That's worse than the boom. So it was very scary. I had Anna hiding behind the boom, and I tried to keep everybody kind of away, and I was trying to figure out what was going on and what I could do. The only line that was tied to the end were the 2 main sheets and the furler line. And the furler line was coming around the entire boat and going to the furler. So I figured, let's just tighten the furler line, get the drum back in to the front of the boat. That way that's not flailing around, and then we can deal with the sail. The thing is, and if you don't understand yet, I can't lower the sail because the sail is furled around there. So until the sail is unfurled, and now it's not going to unfurl because all the furling line is keeping it tight. In retrospect, it might have been possible if I cut the furling line that the thing would unravel, but then I wouldn't have had a way to get it back in the boat. So then it would have just been like flailing around. I mean, it would have been dangerous. It would have been dangerous. But anyway, right here, I am starting to figure out how to get the furling line in, get the main sheets in, so I can pull the whole thing back to the boat. I don't know how to fix this.
Shit.
We got to get that sail down somehow. The problem is
Can we lower it down? Is it on a line?
That's the problem. We can't lower it until it comes out. First we have to get the main in. I figured having the main out, even though we were kind of going upwind, if we were to fall off and it caught a big gust, then it could potentially push the mast down or break it at the top spreader. Because right now I think the staysail is actually holding up the mast, because the forestay is the most important stay. It's taking the most amount of stress. Okay, at this point the main is in, and all we have to do is get the furler to the front of the boat and get it tied up. We ended up tying like another line on it just in case the furler line chafed through. It never did, but just to be safe, so that thing didn't snap out and start flailing around again. Okay, so we got the thing to the front of the boat. But now what do we do about this huge sail that's flapping around? My thought was, and I got this from the saloon, thank you Des, was to take the spinnaker halyard, undo it, and just wrap it around it and then like pull it into the boat. So it was essentially just pulling the sail all in. The problem was the sail was going so crazy that I couldn't even get the line around the sail. So we needed to take the sheets and pinch them off somewhere in the front of the boat, and then have them going back to the winches so we could like pull that part of the sail in too. We eventually get this under control. I mean, we tried to put it on a cleat, we ended up having to put it through a block and put it back to the winches, and then the power winches were able to like pull the clew of the sail down, and now we had a somewhat manageable, like half folded, pretty big sail to deal with. The plan was to go and wrap that halyard around it, wrap the spinnaker halyard around it. Try number 2. And then this is what we ended up with at the end, like a 3/4 folded bowl thing. I don't even know, but it was way better than what we were dealing with, so we left it like that. And we were only about 20 miles from Aruba, so we motored to Aruba, got in the lee of the island. The Coast Guard came aboard, helped us get the sail down, and we were good. Good is relative. Flailing around like that bent the crap out of the furler, bent the drum, broke the furler drum. Basically, I need a new furler and a new headstay. So the other thing that happened is when we went to start the motor and get the head up into the wind so we could possibly go up to the top of the mast and take the pin out of the mast, there was no steering. Okay, so we got a bolt through that hole, and we had to try like 3 of them because some of them were too long, some were too fat. It's actually still got a bolt in there. The pin is all the way at the bottom of the pedestal. I gotta fix it. I've never seen that problem. It looks like a pushed pin going through the rod. So it's like a rod like this, and another rod that fits inside it, and then a pin that goes through it. It doesn't look like it's got a cotter pin on it. It doesn't look like there's anywhere to like lock wire it. It looks like it's press fitted. So it must have just gotten really wrenched and fallen off. Anyway, we fixed that problem temporarily. We got into port. The Coast Guard helped us get our sail down. They came on board. They worked with us until almost 1 in the morning. That's what's going on with Zingaro. We're stuck in Aruba for a little while until we can come up with $6 grand, and then we can keep sailing. The unfortunate thing is I'm gonna miss the delivery for Christmas on the OC tender, so that sucks. But worst sailing conditions of my life for that long. It was definitely the worst sail of my life. Yeah, craziness.
Okay, it's time for the lessons learned, which I'm sure you guys have been waiting for this entire video. I received a lot of comments. I really appreciate you guys. Constructive criticism. Some of you were brutal. I pretty much knew that would happen. A lot of them were constructive. And we're gonna go over some of the points right now. First of all, this furler failed because of crevice corrosion. Crevice corrosion is a little known and often underestimated fact of life when working with stainless steel. Many people use stainless steel fittings under the water for moorings or for anchoring. And the problem with doing that is in an anaerobic environment, stainless steel develops corrosion. There's almost no way to detect it other than dye, and it can just fail at any moment. Now I know what you're asking yourself. Did you penetrate dye your rigging when you bought the boat? No, I didn't do that. I had a rigger come down and inspect the rig. I inspected the rig and it looked fine. Coupled with the fact that it was only 8 years old at the time, I figured it would be fine for a few years. Obviously not. I attribute that to being on the hard in Curacao because it's a small island with very strong trade winds and it's blowing salty air right into the boat at all times. And yes, I will be replacing the entire rig. The forestay and the backstay are new right now. Was I pushing the boat too hard? I don't think so. We were doing 4.5 knots upwind. This boat is capable of 8 knots upwind. I've done it many times. Even with a knot of current that's only doing 5.5 knots, that's very conservatively sailing a 50-foot boat. I don't think that I was pushing the boat too hard. It may have come across that way in the video, but you have to remind yourself that you're watching 15 minutes of a multiple week trip. So just keep that in mind, you know, whether it comes across to you or not as too fast or too slow. I'm the captain and I know what too fast and too slow is. And no, we weren't pushing it too hard. If you've ever seen my channel before, you've probably read some of the comments, and I get a lot of comments that say, oh, I would never sail with you, you're unsafe. And I think the reason that those people say that is because they're naive. They don't realize that I'm doing 10, 20, 30 times as many miles as most people. I just sailed my boat from Panama to Saint Maarten and then to Cartagena, Colombia in 2 months. That's way more than the average person. Yes, my boat's gonna fail more often. It's just a fact of statistics. Was the boat neglected and grossly under-maintained? I don't think so. I bought that boat and spent 11 months on the hard, redoing all of the major systems. Yes, I didn't do the rig, but like I said, I had it inspected. And everything I've done maintenance-wise has been good work. A lot of people said, oh, you shouldn't be taking novice crew offshore like that. I disagree. I think in the 50,000 miles that I've got at sea, I've had 98% novice crew or non-sailors, and it's been great. A learning experience for them. It's been a learning experience for me. It's been a test of my patience. It's been amazing. Is it risky? Of course. Theoretically, it's better to have a sailor on board. But is it that much riskier to bring a novice person on board your boat? It is less risky to take an unexperienced crew than to go solo. Going solo is the most risky thing you can do, and that's why insurance companies don't cover you when you're solo. Sometimes you just have to take crew that doesn't know what they're doing, and then you have to teach them along the way. Some people can be taught better, some people can't be taught. That's a risk you have to take and you have to deal with underway. When the conditions warrant wearing life jackets are worn on board Zingaro. These conditions didn't warrant me mandating life jackets. Joe and I were the only ones working on the boat. Anna was way in the back. The boat wasn't moving, it was just drifting. And both Joe and I talked about it, and we felt that life jackets would have gotten in the way. As far as lifelines and being tied to the boat, no, absolutely not. That's something that you do when you're going 8 knots at night and need to go deal with something on the front of the boat. That's not something that you do during the day, drifting with a problem with a furler. It would have gotten tangled. It was actually more dangerous to be lifelined and tied in my opinion. I wasn't lifelined and tied in when my catamaran ripped in half either, because we weren't moving. I didn't tie myself to the boat when I jumped in the water to tie it together, because I knew that if I was tied to the boat, that would have been a problem. And it's a good thing I wasn't, because it would have been a problem. That might have killed me. If that thing got wrapped in the prop, I'd have been dead. But as far as life jackets, I can see the argument where I should have mandated the novice crew to wear life jackets, sure. But we did talk about that, and that was the decision that was made. We had lost the steering right in the first 10 minutes of that forestay popping. I tried to turn on the motor and head us downwind to go with it, because one, it's more comfortable, and two, it's easier to manage the sail if it's flailing out in front of the boat. But unfortunately, we had no steering. So then we were side on to the waves. The boat turns sideways when there's no wind. The boat goes sideways to the wind. If my face is the wind, it goes sideways and goes this way. And what happens is if you have any waves, they come right over the boat. And now the deck is soaked. I can't open the emergency tiller without soaking my bed. So I made a decision not to deal with the steering until we had the sail under control. That may or may not have been the right decision, but nobody got hurt and we got it under control. Another factor that factored heavily into that choice was our proximity to land. We were within 20 miles of Aruba, and I was just wanting to get that thing under control enough to get to Aruba without letting the mast fall down. Okay, this was also a decision that was affected directly by our proximity to land. There was no reason to pull that furler all the way forward of the boat and have the sail flapping around and then fix the steering and then turn the boat around in circles until it furled up on itself. Because we were so close to land, it was easier to just pull the sail in, wrap it all around, and then get in the lee of an island and then deal with it. So ultimately, we did try to wrap a spare halyard around the boat, but man, it just didn't work. We couldn't get enough of the halyard around the belly. It just kept slipping off the belly and going to the bottom or the top, and it just was not working correctly. In retrospect, had we been farther offshore, we probably would have pulled the furler tight and then just done circles with the boat and let it wrap itself back up onto the forestay. Or we could have made some kind of block system and tied the extra halyards that I have. I have 3 extra halyards, including the spinnaker halyard, around the boat enough where it was actually tying the sail in. If we were going like hundreds of miles, that was probably what we would have needed to do, because the sail would have just shredded itself eventually. If you are going to buy an older boat and the rigging is more than 8 years old, absolutely have a dye tester come out or buy a dye kit and test that rig for crevice corrosion. That could have saved me so much time, money, and unneeded risk had I just dye tested that and found that crack before I set off on that journey. 2, in situations such as this, mandate life jackets for the crew. I absolutely think that's a good idea. If somebody got hit, they could have gone in the water unconscious. The life jacket could have saved their lives. If they were unable to swim back to the boat, it could have saved my life. Obviously, that's a good idea and doesn't warrant having the option not to wear one. I should have mandated that, absolutely. 3, I need to inspect my steering more often. There was probably a way the boat would have told me that the steering was loose or that pin was loose or something had I known to even check it. I didn't even know there was a pin there. This one's a tough one because you don't go over every single absolute piece of your boat in the first year of ownership. And does that make it unsafe to sail with someone? No. But as things fail, you learn. I didn't know that could fail. And now I do. Okay, the 4th and last thing before I get back to my hotel, and I thought about this a long time, is should I actually put these on YouTube? And you know, it doesn't help me. I don't do this for me. I could get a lot more views putting just the adventure stuff out and just omitting all of these problems that I have. When I put an adventure video out, I get 100,000, 500,000, 200,000 views. When I put this kind of video out, I get 20,000. I don't do this for me, I do this for you guys. I want to share my experiences, all of them, good and bad, and I want them to be learning experiences for all of us. Yes, that means I come under fire from you guys a lot, but I don't care. I know I'm a good captain. I know what I'm doing. I know most of the negative comments come from a place of naivety, and it doesn't really bother me that much. So yes, I'm gonna still be true to myself, and I'm gonna still be true to you guys, and I'm gonna still be putting this content out for you. Much love. I hope you enjoyed this video. On the next video, we're gonna explain what we're doing in Aruba. We're gonna go fix the furler. We're gonna take all the sails down. We're gonna have an ice bucket challenge. We're gonna have a bikini try on. It's gonna be a cool video. So stay tuned. Peace, love. See you next week.
You better start moving and feel the music. Get your groove on and let it use you. When you feel the fire and you know it's right, pure desire. Just hold on tight.